You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caparelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies just like yours. And marketing strategies. As I promised last week, I told you that the focus of the show also includes marketing. We kind of started it focused around product and business strategy, but as I built my company, Strategy Generation Company, and I started building out the trainings, and now that company sponsors this show, as most of you know, we have actually three places that we talk about product, business, and marketing strategy. And I promised you last week that I would answer a question about marketing strategy this week. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's get right to that. It is, Dear Strategy, can you talk about some of the newer trends in marketing that should be considered when putting together a marketing strategy? So, of course, we can take this in any number of different directions, but I'm going to make a couple of assumptions again here that when we're talking about newer trends, we're talking about some of the trends in digital and things like that. And I can speak for myself here for sure. Because when I grew up in marketing, in my career, I spent time in marketing, engineering, and product management as well as executive positions and other things. But my background is mostly in kind of product and engineering. But I've run marketing departments for a good portion of my career, and kind of grew up in marketing as well. And the marketing that I was always used to is kind of what I'll call the traditional version of marketing, especially in the B2B space, which is where I was. We had these terms inbound and outbound marketing, but they were more, kind of focused around inbound marketing was the collection of information that you would need to market something. And then outbound marketing was the actual promotional activities that you would do. And I mentioned that for a specific reason, because it very much goes to the answer to the question. But in the outbound activities, I would tell you that most of the outbound activities were focused on shouting out about yourself, shouting out about your products and services, shouting out about your brand and your company, and letting people know that you exist. Of course, also letting them know the value you can bring and all of those things, but very much trying to find where people are and tell them about yourself, right? That was kind of the traditional methods of marketing. And if you think about television advertising, radio advertising, newspaper advertising, magazine advertising, promotional billboards, things like that, it's all the same type of stuff, right? Go find where your audience is that you want to target and make sure that your message is in front of them. Sometimes in ways that they don't necessarily want to see it. And, nowadays we'll call that disruptive marketing. But then it was just marketing, right? And, but if you think about it, it is disruptive, right? I'm watching a television show and then somebody cuts in with 18 ads, right? Which, by the way, has become ridiculous. So anybody who's out there who's in charge of, television programming, stop advertising so much. My goodness. I mean, it's getting to the point where they're cutting pieces of my favorite, classic shows to show more ads. But anyway, different story, but not really a different story, because that's exactly the point. It's disruptive, right? It's not what I want to see, but you're putting it in my face at a time that I don't necessarily want to see it. Same thing if I'm reading a paper or a newspaper or a magazine or whatever. I'm not there for the ads outside of the Super Bowl, right? But I'm not there for the ads. I'm there for the articles and other things, but you're kind of putting things in my face. And that is still very much a very valid and commonly taken approach today, right? We still see all of those same things, radio ads and TV ads and newspaper ads. And now we've translated that to pop-ups on the internet and, news articles on the internet I click on and there's ads all over the place there. And we've also translated that into, the kind of digital out of home experience where, you go down the street and you see these digital billboards, or you're in stores or supermarkets and you see kind of digital advertising all over the place. Or you're, getting ready to board a plane and you see the ads on the back of the LCD that's on the seat, right? So we've still got disruptive marketing very much, but we've kind of made it into more of a digital accessible disruptive marketing in any place that people are. So all of that's still there. And you do have to consider that. So if you're thinking about disruptive marketing, you're kind of in that space, you have to think about all of these different kind of digital methodologies that you have, because disruptive marketing has expanded into anywhere where people are looking. So whether it's social media, whether it's, some of these examples that I just gave, you have to consider all of those things in this kind of digital space. But I think the real crux of the answer that I want to give isn't necessarily around the disruptive part of marketing. It's around this other idea of what is now called inbound marketing, where you are not out to disrupt, but you're out to make sure that people find you on their own. And these kind of traditional definitions of inbound and outbound marketing that I talked about earlier have morphed into something a little different. Now, inbound marketing is more about put yourself out there in places where people are looking so that they find you on their own and they engage with you voluntarily, right? So that's kind of the inbound definition of today. And the outbound definition of today is still very much the promotional stuff that we talked about before, but in the disruptive space, more or less. And you would also translate that into cold calling, sales calling, things like that. And so this new definition of inbound is really where I want to focus here, because boy, are there a lot of different techniques that you have to consider. And if you're more of a traditional marketer, you can very easily miss this stuff, right? So let's take the easiest example of that, which is SEO, or search engine optimization, right? Where if you have a website, and most everybody does, you have to make sure that you structure that website so that if someone is searching for something that you want them to find you on, that you are appearing in the search results. So, I have strategy generation company, and the main thing that we do is strategy training. So if somebody searches strategy training in Google or whatever search engine they're using, I want my website to come up so that people find me. So that's not disruptive marketing, right? That's making sure that I'm available when people are looking for me. And it is an entire technique just on its own, because it is not easy, right? I mean, you're fighting for space. You're fighting for that first page space, right? And it's really, really hard to get that position without doing a lot of work. So it's a whole art form, way more than I can go into on this show. But if you get into search engine optimization and search engine marketing and this entire world, I mean, it's amazing how deep you need to go and what you need to consider. And that means that your marketing is going to turn from kind of putting together ads and promos and turn towards making sure that you have the right content on your website, and that, yes, your website is structured in the right way, because that has a lot to do with the search engine optimization, so that when people are looking for you, they will find you before they find anybody else. And man, is that an art form. So, I mean, the higher level strategies to that is to make sure that you have some type of SEO and SEM and all these other things that we talk about. But then the tactics to that are many, 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 right? And you have to make sure that you resource up to make sure that you have the right people on your team that can pay attention to this stuff. And in many ways, it's voodoo, right? Because it's all based on algorithms nowadays. It's not like, there's some actual human being that's sorting these lists for Google, right? I mean, it's all based on algorithms, and there's a lot of different approaches that you need to take on your website to make sure that you're optimized so that the algorithm finds you and puts you at the front and center where you want people to see you. And man, there's just so much to it. So, different tools, different techniques, different things you have to consider. But those are some of the things that I would say, if you're a traditional marketer and you're not used to that, put it on your radar. So again, I can do 12 episodes just on that. There's a lot of great resources available, but definitely make sure that the terms SEO, which is search engine optimization, and SEM, which is search engine marketing, are in your bag of tricks. And go deep on that, right? Because when you get into real marketing in today's world, people want to find you. They don't want you necessarily to find them. And if when they are looking for something and you don't show up, you're going to miss it. So that's where I would go with this thing. Again, some of the newer trends in marketing, if I was going to put it down to one, make sure that you pay attention to the search engine optimization, search engine marketing, so that people will actually find you when they're looking. So thank you again for joining another episode. And those of you who are regular listeners, thank you so much for being listeners. If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, please go out and do that. You can do that on our website, dearstrategy.net, and get to all the different podcast aggregators, or wherever you're listening to this, go subscribe there. Also, if you do get a chance to go to dearstrategy.net, which is our website, you'll see that I do a blog for every one of these episodes. And this blog will be pretty robust. So definitely go check that out. And you can subscribe to our newsletter from there as well. We hope you'll do that. And finally, the show is sponsored by and owned by Strategy Generation Company. So you can check us out at strategygeneration.com if you're interested in training or classes or any other things that we could help you with. So while you're doing all that, don't forget to make time for the plan. We'll see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.